When I was diagnosed with postpartum depression, my husband's family told everyone I was violent. They filed for emergency guardianship of my baby. At court, my husband whispered, "You made this easy for us." I was left alone in the hallway crying. But then a stranger approached me with documents that proved I was diagnosed with postpartum depression 5 weeks after giving birth to my daughter. I thought it was the start of getting better. I didn't know it was the beginning of losing everything. I was 27. My daughter was my first child. The pregnancy had been normal, the birth was smooth, and we brought her home thinking this would be the happiest time of our lives. I didn't feel that happiness. Not even a little. I was tired in a way I had never been before. I felt disconnected from everything. From my baby. From myself. I cried constantly. I didn't sleep. I felt like I was failing at something everyone else seemed to do naturally. My husband was distant from the start. He said he understood what I was going through, but didn't really act like it. He went back to work after 1 week and left me alone with the baby most days. If I said I was struggling, he told me to take a nap or drink more water. When I told him I needed help, he called his mother. She moved in with us 2 days later. At first, I thought it would help. Someone to hold the baby while I showered. Someone to cook dinner. But that's not what she did. She criticized everything. Said I held the baby wrong. Said I wasn't changing her fast enough. Told me crying around the baby was dangerous. She followed me around, making notes on her phone. I thought she was just being overbearing. Later, I'd find out she was building a case against me. My husband stopped sleeping in our bed. Said he was too tired from work and the baby crying. His mom took over nighttime feedings and refused to wake me. Said I needed rest. I barely got to hold my baby. Every time I picked her up, someone was watching me like I was doing it wrong. Then small things started happening. My husband started locking his phone. He stopped going to therapy with me. Our joint bank account had strange withdrawals. I asked about them, and he said it was for household stuff. I believed him. I was exhausted and blamed myself for everything. Then one morning, I woke up and my daughter was gone. Her crib was empty. No note. No sound. My husband was gone too. His mother's things were gone. I panicked and called the police. They said it was not a criminal matter and that the child was with her father. 4 hours later, someone knocked on my door and handed me a thick envelope. Emergency guardianship petition. My husband and his parents were filing for emergency custody of my baby. In the documents, they claimed I was violent, that I screamed constantly, that I threw things near the baby, that I was a danger to her. There were even photos of me crying on the floor, of dishes in the sink, of laundry piled up. Out of context moments made to look like neglect. None of it was true. Yes, I was depressed, but I was never violent. I never hurt my child. I never raised my voice. I got a court-appointed attorney because my bank account was now empty. They drained it. My lawyer told me not to expect much. He said fathers almost never win sole custody unless the mother is truly unstable. But with a postpartum diagnosis and this much evidence, it might be enough. The court date came fast. Less than a week. I hadn't seen my daughter since the day she was taken. They wouldn't let me FaceTime. I hadn't even heard her voice. The day of court, I wore the only clean clothes I had. I didn't have anyone to come with me. I waited in the hallway until they called us in. When I walked into the courtroom, I saw my husband in a brand new suit. His parents were with him. His mother smiled like this was a celebration. I hadn't seen him in over a week. He didn't look at me until I sat down next to my lawyer. Then he leaned toward me and whispered, "You made this easy for us."
Just like that.
No emotion. Just those words. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The hearing was short. My lawyer tried, but it was clear the judge already had an opinion. The family had built a whole story, months of concerns, incidents, and proof. I couldn't explain enough in time. The judge said I could have 2 hours of supervised visitation per week at a facility. No unsupervised time. No overnight visits. Not even calls. When it was over, they walked out together. I stayed behind on a bench in the hallway and cried silently. I didn't want anyone to see me fall apart again. That was when a woman I didn't know sat next to me. She looked nervous, kept glancing around. She said, "You don't know me, but I know them, and I saw what they did to someone else." Then she handed me a manila folder. Inside were printed emails, dozens, screenshots from months earlier, conversations between my husband and his parents, messages that said things like, "Start taking photos of her crying. The worse she looks, the better. If she gets diagnosed, we can use that. Talk to a lawyer. Ask about emergency custody before she figures out what's happening. Don't worry. She'll break down in court. Then it's over." They had planned everything. Before my daughter was even born, they had already talked about taking her from me. They were watching me struggle and documenting it, not to help me but to use it against me. Every time I cried, every time I looked tired, they were taking pictures, saving texts, building a case. My husband wasn't clueless. He was leading it. The woman who gave me the folder told me her sister had gone through something similar with this family. She had been too scared to come forward, but this time she couldn't stay quiet. I didn't know what to say. I thanked her. I held that folder in both hands and didn't let go. I filed for a new hearing right away. My lawyer almost didn't believe me until he saw the documents. It was enough to challenge the original decision. It's been over 2 years since that day. The case is still ongoing. I've gotten more visitation. I've proven I'm mentally stable. I've never once missed a visit. But the damage they caused, the time they stole, I can't get that back. I haven't finished this story. I don't know how it ends yet. But I have the folder. And I'm not staying quiet anymore. A few weeks after I got the folder, things changed. Not all at once. Not in the way I hoped. But things started moving. My new lawyer took the email straight to the judge. He called it intentional parental alienation and said we could reopen the custody arrangement. It gave me hope for the first time in months. But the other side didn't sit quietly. My husband's family lawyer fought back hard. They said the emails were taken out of context, that I had pressured a witness, that I was unhinged and fixated on conspiracy. They claimed the woman who gave me the folder was mentally unstable and had a grudge against the family. They even tried to get a restraining order against her, saying she was stalking them. She wasn't. She was brave enough to speak up, and they wanted to silence her too. At the next court hearing, my husband sat across from me and smiled the whole time. I didn't recognize him anymore. I still don't. My supervised visits continued. My daughter barely spoke during them. She clung to the social worker, barely looked me in the eye. I'd bring snacks she used to love, toys she used to giggle at. Nothing worked. Once, I leaned in to hug her and she pulled back and said, "Grandma says we don't do that with you." That broke me in a way I didn't think was possible. I asked the social worker what I could do. She said, "Just keep showing up." So I did. Every week, I sat on the floor of that room with my child who looked at me like I was a stranger, and I just showed up. Then came the evaluation. Part of reopening the custody case meant I had to go through a full psychological evaluation court-ordered. I agreed to everything. I had nothing to hide. I gave them access to all my medical records. I showed them my therapy notes, my progress, my meds, everything. They made me sit in a room for 5 hours with a state psychologist who asked questions like, "Have you ever wanted to hurt your child? Have you ever heard voices? Do you believe people are out to get you?" When I mentioned the folder of emails, she looked at me like I was paranoid. I told her I had proof that they planned this. She wrote it down without reacting. 2 weeks later, her report came back inconclusive. She said I showed emotional fragility, fixation on perceived betrayal, and a tendency toward hypervigilance and mistrust. My husband's lawyer used that line, hypervigilance and mistrust, at least 5 times in court. Like it was a diagnosis. Like it proved everything they had said about me. That's when I realized the truth. Even when you have proof, people still choose sides. Then something else happened. I got a call from a woman I didn't know. She said she used to work as a nanny for my husband's parents. She had seen me post something vague online about losing custody unfairly. She said she didn't want to get involved, but she'd seen some things back then that didn't sit right. I asked if we could meet. She said yes. We sat in a coffee shop, and she told me my mother-in-law used to brag about how easy it was to frame me, that she would practice crying before court to make herself look more sympathetic. She even joked about planting bottles of wine around the house to make it seem like I was drinking while caring for the baby. That never happened, but now I wonder how many lies were floating around. The nanny also said something else, that during the time they had full custody, my daughter was never told I was her mom. They told her I was sick and that I couldn't be trusted. My own child didn't know who I was. I asked her to write a statement. She agreed. It was short but powerful. I added it to the case file. I thought we had a real shot after that. But then the judge was suddenly reassigned. The new one had no context, no history. My lawyer said we had to start from scratch on some parts of the case. My heart sank. Meanwhile, things with my husband got uglier. One night, I got an email from him. Just one line. "You're wasting your time. She doesn't ask about you anymore." No greeting. No punctuation. Just that. He wanted me to give up. I know that now. He wanted me to believe I had already lost. But I didn't stop. That same week, I found out they enrolled my daughter in a new private school without telling me. I wasn't listed as a parent or emergency contact. I wasn't notified. I only found out because I saw a social media post from someone who recognized her and mentioned the school name. When I confronted my lawyer, he said, "They're walking a fine line. If we can prove they're deliberately cutting you out, that helps us." So now I'm documenting everything. Every ignored message. Every blocked email. Every time I'm not informed of medical appointments or school updates. I keep it all in a folder. Just like the one that stranger handed me in the hallway. Because I've realized something. This isn't just about getting custody back. It's about surviving people who never wanted me to be a mother in the first place. And they're still trying to erase me. Piece by piece. Voice by voice. But I'm not done. Not even close. A few months into this fight, the tension started spilling into places I didn't expect. My own family, my parents and sister, started to pull back from me. They'd been supportive at first, but my husband's family is wealthy and connected in our town. Rumors started spreading. People whispered that I'd had a breakdown and lost it after the baby. My sister told me quietly that her boss had asked if I was safe to be around children. I knew where that came from. Then something worse. During one of my supervised visits, a social worker pulled me aside and asked if I had been posting threats online. I was confused. I don't even use Facebook anymore. She showed me a screenshot from an account with my name on it, saying things like, "I'll make them pay, and if I can't have her, nobody will." It wasn't me. Someone had made a fake profile. With my photo. With my name. Pretending to be me. Writing things that made me look dangerous. My stomach dropped. We reported it. My lawyer filed a motion to have the posts examined, to prove the IP address wasn't mine. But that takes time. Meanwhile, my husband's lawyer brought the posts into court as evidence of ongoing instability. So now, even though we had proof of their emails, they had proof of my threats. I started sleeping with my phone under my pillow, screenshotting everything, timestamping every interaction. I've never been more exhausted, but I can't stop. Then another twist. The woman who first gave me the folder, my only real ally, got cold feet. She stopped answering calls. Then I got a message from her saying she'd been threatened with a lawsuit if she testified. Her exact words: "They'll ruin me if I help you." I'm sorry. I don't blame her. She's not wrong. But losing her statement hurt my case. Still, I kept digging. One night, after another supervised visit, my daughter drew me a picture. She's only 5, but it was clear. She drew herself, my husband, and his parents in a big house. And, in the corner, she drew a tiny version of me outside a window. She wrote phonetically, "Mama is bad sick." I asked her who told her that. She shrugged and said, "Grandma says you're not safe." That night, I cried in my car for 2 hours. I realized they weren't just keeping her from me. They were rewriting who I was in her head. Then something happened that might change everything. I got a call from a paralegal who used to work at my husband's family's law firm. She wouldn't give her name but said she'd seen unethical stuff in my custody file. She said some of the incident reports my husband submitted looked like they were written after the court filings, not before, which is illegal if they presented them as contemporaneous evidence. She said, "They're sloppy. Look at the metadata on the files." I didn't even know what metadata was, but my lawyer did. We're now working with an IT specialist to go through every photo, email, and incident log they used against me. If the timestamps don't line up with their claims, it's fraud. But of course, as soon as we started pushing that angle, new things started happening. Someone left a note on my windshield at the therapy center where I go for supervised visits. No signature, just the words, "You're making this worse for yourself." 2 days later, my tires were slashed. The police took a report, but didn't do much. Could be anyone, they said. I know who it was. My husband's lawyer filed a motion saying I was harassing the family by sending people to dig into their private communications. They're trying to flip my defense into an offense, make it look like I'm the abuser. I'm scared all the time now. I double-check my locks. I keep a camera by my door. But I'm still going to court. I'm still showing up to every visit. I'm still collecting every shred of proof. Because even though they've taken almost everything, I still have the one thing they didn't plan for. I'm not backing down quietly. And now, between the fake social media threats, the intimidation, and the metadata, I'm starting to see cracks in their story. Tiny cracks. But the question isn't just whether I can prove they lied. It's whether I can do it before they destroy my relationship with my daughter completely. A year after the fake social media posts and the tire slashing, the case had dragged into its 3rd year. By then I had 2 folders, not one. One for every lie they told. One for every mistake I made. Because I'll be honest, I made mistakes too. When the depression was at its worst, I did scream once. Not at my baby, but at a wall. I threw a pillow. I left dishes for days. I didn't fight back at first because I thought I deserved what was happening. I waited too long to call my own lawyer. I thought love and patience would make them stop. Those mistakes gave them time. But their mistakes were bigger. The IT specialist we hired found it. Every photo they used against me was edited or redated. Whole incident logs were written months after they claimed they happened. My husband had forged my signature on a school form. They had even submitted an anonymous tip to CPS that traced back to his father's email. We brought all of it to court. My lawyer warned me not to expect a miracle, but when the judge saw the metadata laid out like a timeline, something changed. His voice got quiet. He called a recess. Then everything cracked open. The paralegal who'd called me agreed to testify. The nanny came back and testified. Even the stranger, who first gave me the folder, showed up at the courthouse in person with her own lawyer. They all told the same story. The family had been planning to take my child before she was even born, and they had lied to do it. In the middle of this, my husband slipped up. Under oath, he admitted to reading my private medical records without permission. Then, confronted with the emails, he admitted he might have exaggerated some incidents. His parents stayed silent, but their faces went white. The judge ordered an emergency review of custody and an investigation for perjury and evidence tampering. That day, for the first time in 3 years, my daughter sat next to me in the courtroom. She didn't look at me at first. But when the judge said she would be spending the next week at my house, unsupervised, she reached for my hand. She whispered, "Grandma said you'd never come back." I whispered back, "They were wrong." It wasn't a movie ending. It was messy. She was scared. She had nightmares. I had panic attacks. We both went to therapy. But the court gave me full custody within 3 months. Supervision was ended. My husband was given visitation, supervised only. His parents were barred from contact until the investigation finished. Then came the charges. My husband and his parents were indicted for filing false statements, custodial interference, and fraud. They're still fighting it, but their names are in the paper now. The same small town that whispered about me now whispers about them. And here's my part of the revenge. I didn't stop at custody. I filed a civil suit for emotional distress, defamation, and parental alienation. My lawyer says it will take years, but every month I get to sit in a room with them under oath and watch them squirm. Every month, more people who knew them come forward with stories. I'm not proud of everything. I stayed silent too long. I doubted myself. I let them take my baby because I believed I was weak. That's my mistake. But I've learned how to fight, slowly, painfully. The last time I saw my husband in court, he wouldn't look at me. He whispered again, but this time loud enough for me to hear, "You ruined everything." And I said, "No, you did." When the judge announced the sanctions, fines, possible jail time, restitution, his mother cried just like she practiced for court, but this time nobody believed her. I walked out of that building holding my daughter's hand. She still doesn't call me mommy every time. Sometimes she calls me by my name. But she's starting to draw pictures of us together again. Inside the house. Both of us smiling. It's not over. The civil case is still going. The criminal case is still going. But I'm no longer the woman on the hallway bench with empty hands. I'm the woman with the folders. The woman they underestimated. They taught my daughter that I was weak. Now she's watching me show her what strength looks like. That's my ending. Not forgiveness. Not forgetting. Just me and my child, standing together, while they finally face the mess they made.